Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for March 3rd, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if Captain Phil Dale could open us up in prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for, first of all, getting us through this day and giving us this opportunity to gather together to conduct the business and the affairs of this community. We ask your blessings on all that is said and done. May you be glorified. And we just want to remember a special family in our community, the Emmerich family who lost their mom and wife this morning, and just bless them as well. Thank you again for loving us. Thanks for your son, Jesus. In his name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Captain. Appreciate it. Okay. Number 2, approval of the agenda. I'd like to add Dr. Kojo Corte under presentations. He wants to give a quick update. And then I'd like to add, we've already approved this, but some verbiage needs to be changed for the mowing contract. We need to add that back under the agenda. I guess under 8G. Other than that, that's all I have.
I'll make a motion to move the, I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Support.
Okay, motion supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Okay, item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to A, approve and place on file the minutes of the February 18th, 2020 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 4, Dr. Kojo Corte. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Supervisor Peroni, and thank you, Board, for having me this evening. I come in peace, and I figured I had to say that. But anyway, I'm not going to take any more than 2 minutes. That's what I promised, maybe 2.5 minutes. But I'm here today to update you on what's happening at Monroe County Community College real quickly. And I have with me today Linda Torbett, who's our HR director at the college. She's new to us, and she actually lives here in Temperance, in Bedford. So I brought her just, to let you know that we do hire people from here. And I'll tell you about a position we have available also at the end of my presentation in the next 2 minutes. And so I don't know if you heard this or not, but in the news, the college, your college was ranked #1 by WellHelp.com in the entire state of Michigan. We were ranked, our nursing program was ranked #1 also. So the college itself was ranked #1. The nursing program was also ranked #1. And then we were ranked #2 for some strange reason for return on investment after a 10, 20-year period. Don't worry about whoever #1 is. We don't care about them. And so good things are happening. We received a $1.1 million gift from Gary Bashner, our largest gift in our history, private gift in our history. And several things that are happening at the Whitman Center, which is here. We are committed to the Whitman Center. We're going to be there until whenever, forever and ever. So recently we completed the garage roof, the tower and entrance painting, IT closet renovation, an emergency generator is there now. The building roof, we're going to replace coming this spring, single-use restroom, and light up some of the things that are happening. We're going to have a single-use restroom there for various genders. Safety and security, access control, security cameras, blue phone, new phone system, parking lot repairs, sidewalk repairs, military repairs, grounds equipment. We just bought a new truck for the Whitman Center. So in case you doubt that we are committed to this place, this is proof that we are committed to this place. A new truck, a new mower, and finally, we are hiring a full-time person for the Whitman Center, a full-time director. This person will be the director for the Whitman Center and also the outreach director for the entire college. And that person will be stationed here at the Whitman Center. So we are committed to the Whitman Center. And then we're hiring two part-time support staff for the Whitman Center. And so the position for the Whitman Center is still open, and I want you to know that, and Linda is in charge of that. And we want someone who's really outgoing, who's dynamic, and can really be involved in this community and show up at all these meetings and the BBA meetings and be everywhere in this community. So this community can really become a part, so that the college will truly be a part of this entire community as we move forward. So we have a commitment to our community, and we're hiring a full-time person. So if any of you is interested in applying for that position, feel free. And that's my 2.5 minutes. I'm done, unless you have some questions for me.
Any questions from board members?
I just think that Dr. Kojo and his team, they need some applause for that. That's really great.
Thank you. And when I came here 6 years ago, there was talk of closing the Whitman Center. And one of the first commitments I made was to keep it open. And we will keep it open, renovations with some of the millage funds we have. Good things are going to be happening. We're going to resuscitate that place. And as you know, we have Spring Arbor there now, and the ISD Transition Center is there also. So good things are happening here in Bedford.
Thank you very much. We
All right,
appreciate it.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Up next is public comment. Comments limited to 2 minutes for agenda items only. Come on up. Okay, seeing none, moving on to 8B, approval of change order 2 and 3 for renovations on Fire Station 1.
How about A?
Did I miss A? A, vouchers for payment. Trudy.
We need to pay bills.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the following vouchers. General Fund, $85,542.94. Fire District, $21,707.19. Police Fund, $157.86. Park Operating Fund, $2,004.17. Library Fund, $5,415.49. Mohawk Trail SAD, $622.25. Springbrook SAD, $198. Lewiston Estate SAD, $93,553.21. Stonegate SAD, $3,091.96. Downtown Development Authority, $193.69. Sewer O&M Fund, $5,294.74. Trust and Agency Fund, $702.44, for a grand total of $218,483.94.
I'll support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Now, item 8B, approval of change order 2 and 3 for renovations on Fire Station 1. It'll be 2 separate motions.
Good evening, Supervisor and board members. Here tonight to answer any questions or give a brief explanation and then answer any questions, I guess, related to the 2 change orders that are before you. When you get into renovations on an existing building, these things become inevitable. But we've tried to manage those, and we have a very willing partner in Delventhal in making sure that we try to keep these things under control. And as you saw with the first change order, it was a deduct. Unfortunately, we can't bring that to you this time. The first change order, number 2, is for an add of $220.15. That is a modification to the fire tower, the hose tower. When that was taken down, it turned out that there was a grade difference between the existing elevations in the back, and when we started looking at how to deal with that, that it made more sense to rearrange the entryways and exits out of the classrooms And by virtue of not putting in an entry at that point, putting the exit out towards the street through the classroom. So in adding the masonry back in, that was a little more than the deducts for the removal of the other work that was related to it, resulting in a $220 add. And through discussions with the plan reviewer and the chief, I think we have a better exiting plan and a better service for the space. So we're recommending approval of that change order. Be glad to answer any questions related to that if you want to handle that first, and then we can move to the next, or I can keep going.
Board members, any questions? Nope. Okay, moving on.
Okay. The second change order is related to a hidden condition that was in the classrooms and the garage. There was a existing ceiling with no access point in it that we were intending to leave in place. When the fire suppression folks were on site, they got access above that ceiling. It was discovered that there was actually an attic space above it. In looking at that, then we would have to put in a dry fire suppression system. The cost in doing that was $18,000 roughly in an ad. It also meant 2 systems then that had to be maintained. So working with the contractor, we looked at some alternatives to that. And what you have before you is a not to exceed change order where we would remove that ceiling, increase the level of insulating value for efficiency within the space, and then eliminate a 2-system approach to the mechanical, and it comes in at a change of $16,499 on a not-to-exceed basis. We're hoping that we can continue to work with Delventhal in that partnership to find ways to economize that, but we have the components that are here in a not-to-exceed approach for what we're hoping to find we can do some different things with when we really get that tore out and exposed. So that is the proposed change for change order number 3.
Any questions? Ms. Stineberry?
What's the deduct, $9,711?
That was from change order number 1,
Okay,
results of that.
so we're increasing at $16,499, but our new contract sum is only, I'm confused, which isn't unusual.
So if you took the original contract amount for $701,500 minus the change order number 1 deduct, that would give you, I don't have not doing the math in my head, but then we added something is wrong there.
So I guess I'm not so.
Nope,
dense.
No, it's all right.
nope,
No, I looked at it the same way, and I think what they're doing is they're taking the original,
yes.
and to me, I agree with you, Nancy, it looks like you would take the balance on this one and start the next change order from there. But each change order is listing the previous change orders, so it's still a running total off of the 701,500.
Correct.
It is confusing. I had the same question at first.
Well, so I would just want to know, the new contract sum is a total of $708,508.
That is correct. I just ran the math and those numbers are correct.
Okay, so basically, we're just increasing it by a little over $7,000.
That is correct,
Okay,
yes, in its present state.
don't tell me you got it.
I didn't
I got yelled at.
You're
last time. I'm
pretending
not
that
saying
you got it.
I do have an additional request. If you'd like me, I could present that right now too, and you can consider it part of the
Is it
discussion.
an add or a deduct?
It's neither at the moment. It's one of the concerns that I have is that we have a couple of other items that we're still working through, and there's going to be some minor changes as well. And I'm afraid that waiting to bring them to a board meeting could create some delays that could cost additional monies and waiting for some of those decisions to be made. So I'm wondering if we can do something like with yours and Trudy's and the chief's signature and maybe one other board member, we could handle change orders up to 5,000, 10,000, some amount, and then report back to the committee in between board meetings. And anything larger than that, that might need to have more discussion, would be something that would wait till the next board meeting, put on the agenda, and come back like we have these, if that's something that can be done.
Are you foreseeing changes like that coming?
We have a couple of minor change orders that I expect to still see. We discovered some ductwork that was above a ceiling and was disconnected and non-functional that needs to function to heat and cool the kitchen. So there's a couple of things along those lines. So I expect the last of these things that are being discovered as we tear into it. There was discovered a roof leak today, so we'll need to look at a repair for that. And I expect those to all be in that range of 5 or under. And we don't want to delay the progress of the construction, potentially waiting for a month if that happens early in the time between your ability to get on a schedule here and in the next meeting that you might have. So it's just a suggestion to keep the progress moving. We can continue to operate this way just as well. We've got a very understanding contractor. That's one of the advantages, I guess, of having a community member involved in that process. So Delventhal and the sailors being part of that do make this process work as well. But that would help the efficiency of things if that's something that you can see to do.
I guess I would ask the board, depending on the situation, you know, that we would, if we couldn't really wait 2 weeks, it could be a situation to where, hey, it's, you know, they're gonna have to leave the site and then come back, and then that's what you're talking about, something like that, right?
Yeah. Right now, the items that are on our list are relatively minor, and I'm not foreseeing a big issue of holdups, but they could get down to some delays that could create other costs.
Ms. Tinderberry?
You only need 18 hours to post a special meeting, and then whoever can show up, and you need a quorum. I'm not opposed to trying to save time, but I'm opposed to the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer having full sway over signing any change orders. I mean, all you need is 3 of you work full-time in the office and 1 more trustee, but I would say that call a special meeting, it can be handled in a day or 2, and whoever can make.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, if we can do that, that would solve the
Yeah,
problem
that's-
as well.
Mr.
I
Clemens?
apologize, we don't have the whole contract in front of us. Was there a contingency percentage built into
No.
this contract?
No,
So
there
there's no
wasn't.
contingent factor?
Not in the contract that was proposed. That
Because
was fixed fee for the scope of work.
It's not outside the norm to have a 10% contingent built
Correct.
in at the discretion of the contractor, which would also solve the same problem.
Ms.
I
Tinderberry?
know you all know this, but I just want to remind you that we're dealing with taxpayer dollars here. Corporations may, have contingencies built in, but I think when we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, we should be expedient in making sure that the money is spent. Not that it wouldn't be, but
I think if it's a situation that really can't wait, I think Nancy brings a good point up. We can just call a
Yeah.
special meeting and make it happen, so.
Yeah, if we have that
Yeah.
option available, I
Yeah.
think we can keep this all moving.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, I look for a motion.
I move that we approve the recommended change order number 2 for an increase to the contract of $220.15 as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Tinderberry?
aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
First River votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Francis, you want to do the second?
I'll move that we approve change order number 3, which is an increase in the amount of $16,499 as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Ms.
Can I-
Tinderberry?
Can I add a friendly amendment stating that the new contract sum would be $708,508.15? So that we have that stipulated in the,
We also should include that it's a not-to-exceed approval as well.
You good with that, Paul?
Sure.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinderberry?
aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
First River votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Thank you
So
for being
just
here.
to talk about a procedural piece of that, because that's a not to exceed, we'll end up with another change order to put the final amount in that'll be back before you to either fix it at that or agree on the lower number if it all comes together. So procedurally, that'll be the step.
Just a quick comment on the change orders. Would it make sense, and I would think your system can do it when you generate the order, like right now, Ms. Tinberry asked about the new number of 708, 508, that can we, since you're putting the previous orders on the same one, does it make sense, instead of keep putting them all up in order and then doing a final total, to do it as a subtotal, and then subtract or add, new subtotal, subtract or add, subtotal, anytime there's a change?
And show the revised amount after each
I think
each
it's a little
change.
more self-explanatory. Then if somebody wants to go back, they can, instead of grabbing multiple orders, they can look at one order and then go through them a lot easier.
Sure. That's not a big issue. I think we could do that with, it's just putting it into
I
the
mean,
spreadsheet
I'd like
there.
to see that too. I mean, it's
Mhm.
probably easier to walk down.
Yeah, I don't see that as a big issue.
Thank you.
Just one other thing I was going to say is thank you for how diligent you guys are being on this project. The fact that you're coming back with cost savings to mitigate against the unforeseen is really appreciated. I think to Nancy's point, it is our neighbors' money, and it makes us feel really good knowing that you guys are watching the bottom line as closely as we are. So thank you for that.
We appreciate that. It's not all us. Like I said, there's a local contractor involved in it, and I think that makes a big difference because they're looking out for their own taxpayer money too. So that partnership here is, I think, proving very good for you.
Very cool.
Well, that, and when you're dealing with a 70-year-old building, you don't really know what you're going to find till you get into it and dig it out and find it.
Yes, yeah.
If you find something worth keeping, let us know. though.
Yep, the chief's right on top of that.
And I see
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Saylor sitting back there, so thank you, Jess. I appreciate all the work you're doing over there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, thank you for being here.
You
Any
bet.
more?
I am
Comments or
the next
questions?
item too, so you can
Oh,
stay here for that
okay.
if you would like.
Okay, item 8C, preliminary PUD approval for Old Farm Estates, parcel number 5802-032-05565, Stearns Road, east of Secor Road. Mr. Jacobs?
Okay.
Or Ms. Stenberg, go ahead, you can start us off.
No, I was just gonna, actually came to the planning commission, but go ahead, I don't wanna.
Yeah, and I think it's been before you. If there's questions, I think you've got a pretty detailed report. We're here to answer them. I don't need to drag this out for you. This is, I think, the last step in the preliminary approval basis. With this, we can complete the engineering and final steps through the planning process if you see fit to allow us to continue with that.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion then. There
Mr.
aren't any questions. I'm the only one that asked questions. I'm just kidding. I'd like to, the planning commission did see and move through this in February and is recommending us to approve it. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the request from Lambertville Mixed Use LLC for preliminary approval for a 28-unit, two-family planned unit development condominium project located on the south side of Stearns Road, east of Secor Road, parcel number 5802-032-055-65 on vacant land in Lambertville, Michigan, contingent upon the addressing of all issues and obtaining approval from the reviewing agencies, including the Monroe County Drain Commission, Monroe County Road Commission, Manikin Smith Group, and the Fire Department review letters. Prior to any final PUD consideration, the applicant shall prepare a PUD agreement, and all necessary condominium documents shall be submitted and approved by the township attorney. The special assessment district for street lighting shall be entered into between the township and the developer. Number 3, all color schemes, building materials, and building renderings shall be submitted, and a narrative shall be prepared and submitted to the township. Number 5, landscaping and buffering plan shall be submitted, and a condominium association shall be established.
Support.
Okay, motion is supportive of Mr. Clemens, discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Okay, item 8D, approval of a resolution to place a fire protection proposal on the 2020 August primary ballot. Chief, if you'd like to come on up. And Phil, if you'd like to kind of lead us in and let us know where we're at with this.
Sure. You have in front of you a proposed ballot proposal for the August primary election, and a resolution that would have to be adopted by the board that goes along with that ballot proposal. The important part of the discussion tonight, I think, number one, is the amount that's being proposed, and number two, is what is included within the ballot proposal, because that will control what the money, what the funds can be used for, and will also notify our taxpayers what it is they're voting for or not voting for. So that's the discussion you have in front of you. What you have in front of you is very similar to the last ballot proposal that was approved by the taxpayers of Bedford Township, with this notable exception. That was for, the previous one was for 1 mils. This is for 1.75 mils over 6 years. Our current millage expires at the end of this year, with the tax collection at the end of this year. So this proposal encompasses 2021 through 2026, next 6 years. So did I get that right, or is it 2020, 2026? So again, language is important, and keeping in mind that you need to have the language in there that will meet the needs of the fire department, the short-term and long-term plans that this money will be used for. And this is dedicated to the fire department, will not be used for any other purpose.
Chief, can you give the public a little background of why we're to the point of doing an increase? Because I think it's really important for it to be a clear
Absolutely.
understanding.
So this isn't a new millage, although it's an increase on the existing operational millage, or the request is. What's important to understand is, so far back as we could check, the Treasurer's Office says that we've been operating with that 1 mil since at least 2000. So for about the last 20 years, we've been doing a good job with the department with that 1 mil. But as we have evolved, as we've grown, and as we've improved the service to meet the needs of the community in the past few years, the costs have been increasing. Now, we've been offsetting those costs with a $536,000 federal grant that is due to expire in a year. And we know that by and large, if we're going to continue the current level of service that we're delivering, we need to increase the millage amount, or at least somehow increase our operating budget so that we can sustain the combination of full-time and volunteer firefighters that we have, maintain the advanced life support service that we have, and some of the other initiatives that we've taken on in the past 2 or 3 years. So, so while we certainly need to have the millage renewed because it's all that we use to operate, we also need to look ahead at the future and hopefully not move backwards as a department, and not move backwards as far as the service delivery that we're providing to the residents.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Mr. Clements?
I had sent out an email to the board, and since everyone has in their packet, I wanted to draw the board's attention to the resolution language next to the last sentence on the page. My concern is the "and" building sites as it relates to the resolution. I don't think there is any plan or proposal in place between now and 26 that we would be looking at new pieces of property for new fire stations. And I feel like that weights this resolution. It might cause some alarm and some concern to citizens, because I agree with what the chief stated. We've made such progress in the area of advanced life support in this community. And that's a large portion of what this millage is gonna go for. And I feel like if we're not careful, the real need and the real intended reason why this millage is being asked for and the increase to the existing is gonna get lost in something that's largely irrelevant to the millage to begin with. And so that's why I brought it to everybody's attention this week. And so I would like to suggest for point of discussion that we remove that. I did reach out to the chief and ensure that it wasn't gonna conflict with anything they had going on or something I was unaware with, and there's no, chief can speak for himself, but he had no opposition with those words being removed as well.
We did we studied pretty hard whether we were going to stay with the 3-station or look at other property, but that's been a year past now, and we certainly decided about a year ago to move forward with the 3 existing sites that we had, so I couldn't foresee any reason why we would need to look at, as Trustee Clemens said, the overarching goal and the majority of the increase will go to, or will be needed to maintain the full-time firefighting staff that we have, as well as maintain the advanced life support by maintaining that staff. So.
Well, the only thing I would say is Fire Station 2, there's been a little discussion about whether or not the building is useful for what we need for. So there's property within that site that we could potentially build on if, if that was what, there has been a little discussion of that.
Yeah,
Rather than renovating the building that we have, if it's really cost effective to renovate or tear down and build new on the same site, which is,
yeah.
but it's not a new site, it's the same site. So I
Correct.
get what you're saying, I agree with you that, there is no new sites. You don't want to confuse people thinking that, hey, there's this grandiose site we're looking to build a new building on, so.
And
Because it
the
already
fact that
says-
we've already covered maintenance
Yeah.
of the fire department buildings in the language. In talking with Mr. Goldsmith, he felt like that would meet all elements of what we're trying
Well,
to do.
well, like you said, and for maintenance or fire department buildings
Mhm.
and equipment, it doesn't need to say and building sites. I agree with you. That's good point out.
If you're going to, other than general maintenance, make improvements to any of the structures, you could add that. And I just penned out something for maintenance and improvements to fire department buildings and equipment, period. And strike out and building sites. So if the short term or long term within the time frame of when this millage will be operating, should the voters approve it, if within that 6-year time period, if you think some of this money might be used to improve an existing building, add on to it, for example, if that's among the discussion, then you might want to add, or you would want to add, the term maintenance, after maintenance and improvements to fire department buildings and equipment. If that's the vision, and that's what you've been talking about, that should be added.
To what you're saying, what if it's not just improvements on current buildings? What if it's like, it would be a new structure on currently owned property? Would it need to include?
I think,
like Station 2.
I think that would go beyond the scope of the language, even if you put maintenance and improvements to fire department buildings. Many years ago, there was this debate when we did the library and basically took it all down except one wall. And so you had to examine the ballot language to see, okay, does that envision and encompass what we propose to do? So if it's part of the vision of the fire department and this board to do something like that, if you did a comparative analysis and you found that one building, it would be more cost effective to tear down and build on the same site, then I think we need.
And that's, I guess, the question.
We need
what
to add
TC's
additional
saying
language.
Is any of that fitting within this 6-year scope? Is
Well,
there a
that's
plan
what-
for that?
That's what we don't know. We did the tour, whoever showed up to the tour to look at Monroe Road, and it was explained to us the situations that we have. As of right now, we're kind of in a position where we really don't know if it needs to be, if it's cost effective to remodel as is or tear down and build new.
Right, that's when the roof problem happened at Station 1 that kind of moved ahead of Station 2. Arguably, before that happened, Station 2 needed the most attention. It needed to be addressed first. But with the roof problem that we had up there, the order was reversed. So our intent is, once we get moving on Station 1, to do the exact same thing with Station 2, to have a look and see what the most cost-effective way to address that is, just as we did with Station 1, meaning remodel and bring up to the current codes versus another smaller building to replace that one if it's more cost-effective to do that. We really don't know that right now. We certainly, within the span of the 6 years, need to be working on the plan for that. Whether we get to the point where we're doing something major, I wouldn't know as of yet, because we're just too early in knowing what we need to do. Aside from I should say, we're too early in knowing the scope and the cost of it, aside from knowing that the work needs to be done.
But what Phil's saying is if we strike out and building sites, then
You can't
if
do
we
that.
do need to rebuild,
Right.
and it comes to that, we can't with the ballot language.
Well, it wouldn't be the site,
Wouldn't be the
because they
site.
own the site. It would
They
be
own the site,
building
it's just the
itself.
building. That's why it would be an improvement to the existing property.
But he's saying, with what you just said, Phil, you wouldn't be able to tear down and build a whole new site, correct?
I don't think this language sufficiently advises the taxpayers that that would be the intent of the board. So if that is the intent of the board, or that's a possibility, then we should redesign the language so that it's captured within. And it's not a bad thing. And that's why we wanted to get this discussion before the board tonight, because we have time to work with it, or maybe we can get it done tonight. But I don't want the board to be in a position where we're challenged later on if we make the decision, and it's the right decision to tear down and replace on an existing site, that we didn't have sufficient language in the ballot to accomplish that goal. Because in the event that it makes sense to do that, if you do a comparative analysis of the two, and it comes back that it would be more cost-effective to do a tear down or rebuild as opposed to remodel, then we should put that in this ballot language in a form sufficient to advise the taxpayers and be able to use the money for that purpose.
What's your thought? He's got something quick to say. Okay.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. And I don't want to lose focus, or again, I want to make sure that we all have the focus. While we certainly have to address Station 2 because of the condition of the building and the needs, that is secondary to the maintenance of service. So again, whatever the decision, whatever the pleasure of the board is, we just hope that we keep in mind, and we hope that the residents understand that service delivery is first and foremost the priority, and the priority with the increase. So
Well-
any way that the board's comfortable moving forward with ballot language, we just have to make sure that that's the focus and the key, because it's extremely important that we continue to have operating funding to operate the fire department.
Mr. Francis?
To that end, you may want to consider this, because what I'm hearing from this discussion is that the ability to continue advanced life support services is paramount. And if that's the case, and it should be, and it is, then we may want to add this, and I don't want to get too wordy, to be used for general operations, including continuation of advanced life support services and capital expenditures, comma, and for maintenance, and whatever language we decide to put in there. So that might be better. We add a few words, but I think that gives a good picture to the voter that that is of primary importance to this millage.
Mr. Francis?
I was going to mention that, not in exact words, but I think that's a great idea. We certainly don't want to mislead the public in any way. We're not trying to do that at all. We're trying to lay everything on the table, but we're guessing what we might need 6 years from now, and we don't know. So this at least lets the public know that we're thinking of that, but we don't know what that decision is going to be till we get an estimate on it, as far as either repair renovate or tear down and start over. So if the language could be worded so that it gives us the flexibility and still not mislead the public, I'm all for it.
Mr. Montreal?
Well, and that's what, like, I don't want to put words in TC's mouth, but I think that's what, I think I want to stay kind of focused on the and building sites. Just because if we remove that, it sounds like you're tying your hands, but if you're not going to do that, to TC's, I think TC's point is, by keeping that in there, if you're not going to do that, you're like adding something that you're not going to do. So I guess it's like, I want to kind of keep that focus right now, and I think that, is what's being brought up. Do you need to keep that so that your hands aren't tied?
Mr. Steiner?
I think we're all sort of leaning in the same direction in our thought process. But I would still remove site, the word site, because if you tear an entire building down, we still own the site. We don't want anybody to think that we're buying a brand-new site. So by removing the word site, if we're going to include some kind of language that would incorporate a partial new structure or new structure or whatever, that's fine. I think that the way Phil laid that out, I think we're definitely covered. But I agree with Mr. Clement's comments. The site word itself needs to come out because we don't have our eyes on any property to build a brand new station or anything. So I think taking that out takes a lot of confusion off the table as well. And then one just last comment too, to what Chief said, we've been operating on a 1 mil since about 2000, so about 20 years. They've managed through that 20 years, and to never come back for an increase on that's a pretty good job. But if you look at the chronology of what's happened in this township, also since 2020, the township itself, how the township has developed, the population has developed, and if you ran that in a chronological order of the events that took place over those 20 years, and then you ran the fire department with that, the fire department probably stayed down low because they had a 1 mil to work with. The last 3 to 4 years, there's been a lot of changes and a lot of improvements within our fire department. So that fire department is starting to come up on that chronology ladder. So they're getting up with the times of this township, and even if the township levels out, we've got to make sure that they're prepared to stay at that same level of service that we give today. And if and when we do increase this township any further development, et cetera, they've got to be able to keep up with that as well. So I think that we're headed in the right direction, looking toward the future of what's going to happen and what we need to do to support it if we want that kind of service in this township.
So, Phil, could we just remove the word sites and just say and buildings?
I have some language for you, but Nancy had a
Ms. Kinwright?
comment first.
Well, I don't want to give a false impression to the public. 1 mil has increased, the revenue has increased every year. It's not like 1 mil was the same amount in 20 years ago as it is now. I mean, let's face it, it's not. In 20 years, I don't know how much it's increased, but it's certainly increased a considerable amount because my taxes have gone up. So I'm just wanting to give a fair and honest assessment here. 1 mil over 20 years is not, certainly they've had numerous increases. I thought this whole addition to adding 0.75 to the 1 mil has to do with being able to fund the full-time people and maybe even have more full-time people through the grant. This came all about because we received a grant, and after so many years, we're to pay for it ourselves.
That's correct.
Okay, so now I feel personally just a little I won't say bait and switch, but it feels to me like we're getting into something that we weren't really totally involved in. Personally, I'm totally against tearing down a building to build a new one. The footprint on Station 1, the amount of property there is very small. I don't know how you could build a better station there because you just don't have the room, the property. So then that might be having to buy another piece of property or something, but I understand that the bays don't meet the new truck sizes and all of that, but raising the roof, to me, just seems like it has to be more cost-effective than tearing the whole building down, getting rid of all that debris, and then building a new building. Even at the station too, the footprint isn't that big. I mean, how much, you know, what more could you, how much bigger of a building could you build? I think that, I mean, I agree with Phil that the wording that was in the first millage needs to stay, but I don't agree with the building sites at all. If it cramps the board at that time, good thing, that's what I say.
Paul?
Mr. Clemens?
I don't know that you've ever said anything that I agree with more than what you just said. When we started this process, the whole point was so that ALS service in this community would continue. And what that means to people listening is there are people alive today, because we run advanced life support in this community, that arguably would not have been if we had basic life support. So this is really being done from a true safety, health, and welfare. And my concern when I first read it was I didn't ever talk about improving a millage for a building site. You know, I get the operations and I get all of that, and I think to Phil's point, the improvement avoids the inference of the library, which this community is very tainted by that. Nobody appreciated that. It wasn't completely candid, and this board doesn't want to do that. We want to be, the reason why we're on this discussion for this long, is we want to be candid. But I agree with Nancy, this is about life support in the community, and with that, there are going to be some maintenance issues and some operation issues and blah, blah, blah. But that's why I brought up the sites, and I appreciate everybody listening. Phil, you said you have language.
Well, real quick, before Phil goes, I was about to speak to that. For the most part, this millage increase doesn't leave you very much for buildings at all. I mean, it pretty much covers, you know, personnel, right?
That's correct. The bulk of it is to maintain and possibly add 1 or 2 more firefighters to maintain the advanced life support service. We cannot do that unless we're providing 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage. So the entire intent when we started talking in the committee, the whole meeting, was that an increase was necessary to pick up where that grant money is going to drop off. And that is, without a doubt, the most important thing. That will allow us to keep the advanced life support service, and it will allow us to do a good job delivering that service to the residents.
Mr. Francis?
Phil mentioned that he had some wording that he might want us to consider.
I'll give you a couple of different options here, because Nancy's comments were good. Everybody's comments have been good. And it brings us back to what the primary purpose of the millage proposal is, and that's continuation of advanced life support services. So this is the broadest one. We'll start with that. And I'll start with, for the purpose of providing funds to the Bedford Township Fire Department to be used for general operations, including continuation of advanced life support service and capital expenditures, for maintenance of equipment and maintenance of improvements. Having trouble reading my own writing here in my chicken scratch. And for improvements and/or reconstruction of fire department buildings. So that's the broadest, because that encompasses maintenance of buildings, maintenance of equipment, and possible reconstruction of a building. So that would be the broadest that you would want to go, I think, based on your discussion tonight.
Does reconstruction mean tearing down?
I think that fits within that definition, or if we were going to not envision tearing down and starting new, then we would use a different term.
Would improvement work?
Remodeling or improvement.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Chief, do you
take
have,
out
particularly when you think
reconstruction.
about, we're talking about a 5-year window here. I mean, we're not setting ourselves in for the next 20 years. We're saying that within the next 5 years, we're not going to do anything other than improve our own facilities. And I think what we've talked about at Station 2, particularly with what we've seen done at 1, makes tons of sense. I mean, the whole argument for 1 is we're salvaging a building, we're saving taxpayers' dollars. You know, I get that for the fire department, and they've been equal partners on this. You know, it's not the brand-new building that's shiny and smells new, but it's completely functional. It's an improvement of what was there, and we protected a township asset. I think if we had that same philosophy at Station 2, you know, again, it won't be the world's most beautiful fire station, but it'll absolutely be functional, and it'll protect our equipment that is there to protect people's lives. And I think that's what we're all striving for.
Yeah, we would totally agree, and I wouldn't want anyone to think that our hearts are set on a new building. The only reason we would entertain that is to check the cost and make sure that it's not, to bring that building up to code and to do everything that we need to in that building. If it cost more than a new station, I think that we would have to have a serious discussion about that. A new station, to your point, could certainly be a smaller footprint than what we've got over there. It would be something probably, likely, we envision it to be something more to the size of Station 3, which is a much smaller building and smaller footprint. Wouldn't, with the 3-station model we have, it certainly does not need to be any bigger or more expensive than a smaller footprint and smaller square footage than what we're currently using. It's just based on the condition of the.
So are you foreseeing that need to be changed, possibly, the assessment done within the next 5 years?
Without a doubt, we are going to want to get that assessment and be looking at that building within the next 5 years so that we
So would
have
it
a
be on-
direction and have a path that.
So would it be on the next millage?
I wouldn't know for sure. It's going to be based on, the building is in bad shape. If we're going to continue to use it and continue to use it for the full-time staffing that we need, in speaking with the building department, he really expects some life safety improvements on it, so that we're bringing it up and being compliant with the current codes if we continue to use that building. So we've got to factor a lot of things in. I wouldn't want to wait for 5 or 6 years to start doing that study. I think that the cost analysis is something that we should be looking at in the near future. But that'll give us kind of some direction on how far out and what we need to do after we get the study back. It's a little too early to speculate on which direction we would go and how soon we would need to do it until somebody came back and said, these are the life safety things that you have to fix. These are the code items that you have to fix if you stay in the building versus a smaller footprint.
Mr. Matre?
No, Phil, say that scenario plays out, does the language that you just quoted close the door on that?
If the scenario of tearing down and building new, well, the broadest form that I read first would work. But if we used a more, that's the broadest. If we used a more restrictive language, then it wouldn't work. So we're considering, the other option is considering, and for maintenance or improvements on fire department buildings and equipment, period. Strike out the building sites. And if you did that, you're not going to be tearing down and reconstructing any buildings. It would just be for maintenance and improvements. Raising the roof, doing what's necessary to make the building operational. But it wouldn't, in my opinion, it would not allow for a tear down and a rebuild. You'd have to add, language to the effect of reconstruction.
So if in the next 5 years we do that assessment and it turns out it is the most cost-effective option to tear down, rebuild, it would have to be on new millage. It
would have to be a new millage. And keep in mind for this, because this is important to some, that if you want, in 6 years, if you wanted to present this to the public as a renewal, You couldn't do that if you were going to use it to build a new structure. It would be a new millage, regardless of the amount. If you were going to change the language of the ballot proposal, that would include the construction of a new building. So that's something to think about. It wouldn't be a renewal. This is not a renewal. Sometimes people think that a renewal is, more palatable to the public. They're not adding new tax dollars, so to speak. In a renewal, you have to reduce it by Headley. This is not reduced by Headley because it's a new millage.
Realistically, even with the millage as it sits, even if the language is in there to tear down and rebuild, the money's not there.
Well,
So I mean, you don't even have close to the amount of money even after the 5 years to build a new
And
daggone building.
that's kind of what my point was, is
So-
you have it in there, but if you have no money to do it
The
to
mon-
begin with.
You'd have a few hundred, $500,000.
And philosophically, what was the overarching purpose of this? And it was back to, we're providing advanced life support,
Exactly.
not trying to work on structures and.
So we should close the door.
So unless we're willing to raise the millage to where it actually could fund it, I think you leave it alone and take out to where, like what Ms. Tinderberry said, whether it doesn't allow you to build a new site.
I agree because it paints the wrong picture to the public.
So can you read that one more time? The one to
Sure.
where it doesn't allow us to
Sure.
build new sites?
So for purpose of providing funds to the Bedford Township Fire Department to be used for general operations, including continuation of advanced life support services and capital expenditures, and for maintenance or improvements on fire department buildings and equipment, period. You strike out building sites.
And everything's covered.
So we go back to where we started.
Well,
Yeah.
the inclusion
No,
of
we just
the
took out
No, were you?
advanced life support.
I'm good.
You can maintain and/or improve what you have. Okay, you're not gonna reconstruct anything, you're not gonna tear down. But the practical point here that's been made, there will be insufficient money to do otherwise
No
anyhow.
funds there.
And if you're going to build new, then that's what the development of long-range capital improvement plans are all about, and we can be working on that. And when this millage expires, if that's where we're at that point, that's what we roll out to our
Well,
taxpayers.
and that's the thing, if you get the assessment in 6 months and it shows that, hey, it's cheaper to build, then we save.
And now, if that's what the real long-term plan is, and we're looking at that in 6 years, we are going to have to invest at least a little bit of money into the building, but a much smaller amount, knowing that the long-term plan isn't to keep the building.
Yeah, and there'll be some in there to do that.
Yeah, you would use discretion. You would just do what's necessary to maintain what's minimally necessary for health, safety, and what have you. And then knowing that you have a long-range plan in place that you will ask the public to fund at the end of 6 years.
Mr. Supervisor, are we at a point where you'd be willing to accept a motion?
Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion if I could
Mr.
have Phil as my
Francis
surrogate
has one
read it.
more
There's
comment.
one item missing on this, and that's the dollar amount that we assume will be raised in the first year. Because it's difficult to do on something like this a year in advance. We know what the tax valuation is for 2020. That's what the bills were sent out in December, based on that. And that is $1,192,297,204. Now, 1 mil would be $1,192,000. A mil and 3/4 would be $2,086,000. So maybe we should, when this language is sent up to the county for approval, we're gonna have to have a pretty firm number, but it's still gonna be a guess, because we're guessing what the valuation is gonna be in a year and a half from now. So it's gonna be a guess, but if it were based on today's valuation, it would be $2,086,520,000, or $520.
Ms. Tinderberry?
It says approximately.
That's right. We have to have a number in there, but
No, no, I know, but it doesn't have to be the exact number.
That's
It could be
correct.
approximately.
That's correct.
Right.
But we might
Point
want to
well
include
taken.
that
We
in.
can't determine, but it is an approximate value. of what we expect the first year's collection to be.
Just so it's not more than what, because if you say approximately 3 million and it doesn't come, or excuse me, approximately, 3 million, it doesn't come up to that, then the taxpayers are gonna wonder, well, you said it's gonna be approximately 3 million, how come you need more now? So I mean, I think it needs to be based on what we have now so that we know it's not going to go over.
Okay, Mr. Clements?
And, you know, I'm sorry. You've got in here, you wanted in here an additional millage of up to 1.75 mils, so that leaves discretion with the board to adjust it later on a yearly basis, if you want to, on an annual basis.
Just it as long as it's no more than 1.6.
That's right, up to, yes. Sorry to interrupt, but.
No.
For instance, if something happened and we had to get out of the ALS business, and we raised millage saying we'd like to continue that, that's what I wanted to have, that up to in there that allows us the flexibility, because if we don't have that service, we don't need that money, we'll downsize what we do levy to cover what the needs are. And that gives us the flexibility to do that. That, to me, makes a lot of sense.
It's a good point. You're being responsible with the taxpayers' money.
That's not gonna happen, though.
Well, we hope
Not
it
gonna-
won't,
we're
but
not gonna-
who knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm not getting any younger, you know.
Okay, Mr. Clemens, whenever you're
All
ready.
right, I'll try to make a motion. I'm going to go really slow because there's a lot of strikeouts on this. I'm going to pick up with for the purposes. The motion would read as is, up to for the purposes of providing funds to the Bedford Township Fire Department to be used for general operations, including the continuation of advanced life support services, comma, and capital expenditures, comma, and improvements, and maintenance or improvements by the fire department for buildings and equipment, period.
And then we'd continue on with the estimated revenue.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Support.
Well stated.
Okay, we have an emotion and support by Mr. Montre. Discussion?
Yeah,
Mr. Dennery?
what is the estimated amount we're gonna put in there? We need to have an agreement on that.
Well, if we use
2 million.
today's number, it's 2,086,520.
I agree with that.
That's what.
It's a good
I
enough
think
number
that's
for tonight. That's the
that's-
best information
That's all
we
we
have
can do.
tonight.
information you have based on current facts. That's what we would have to put in.
Trudy, you good?
2 million,
2,086,520.
Okay, any more discussion?
That was a
Mr.
friendly
Steiner?
amendment.
You go with the friendly amendment? Okay,
Yes.
could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens.
Aye.
Mr. Montroy.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery.
Aye.
Mr. Francis.
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0.
Could we also adopt the resolution tonight? I'll provide the ballot language first thing in the morning to Trudy and Nancy, and then I think you should adopt the resolution, because once that is adopted and signed, it can be sent to the county clerk for inclusion in the August primary
So moved.
ballot.
So
Second.
moved.
Moved and supported by Mr. Steiner, discussion?
I have a question.
Okay, Ms. Hirschberger?
So you'll change the resolution to match the verbiage in the,
Yes, I will.
okay, do we want that in the motion, that the verbiage will match?
Sure, just, yeah.
You go with that, Mr. Francis?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Thank you, Chief. Item 8E, approval of the Monroe County Road Commission contract for guardrail repair on Crab Road. I sent everybody an email with the good news. This was a discussion Mr. Francis and I and the road committee have had for a couple of years. We've pushed it off for a couple of years, and we called this year. Mr. Bushman with the Manica Smith Group recommended that we call the road commission and talk to them about it, so we did, and they were able to get out there and take a harder look at it instead of putting pylons in. I don't know if you guys have been out there to look at that guardrail, but it's a steep drop off. And it's a lot of that dirt is washing away, so what was recommended was to drive pile around it and put new posts in and really stiffen it up, make it safer. So what they're gonna do now is they're gonna rework it, put longer poles in, and they're gonna do it under maintenance for the road commission at their cost totally. So, won't buy us the, the 100 years, but it's definitely an improvement that'll last, hopefully
Well, it fixes
20
it-
plus years.
It fixes the safety issue.
It
It's
fixes the safety issue,
Terrible
for sure.
safety issue if you drive by there. It's right where Crab Road ends in a little bit of a curve right at Telegraph.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the guardrail that's on the south side of the road.
Yeah.
And it does drop out 10, 12, 15 feet down, and it's, it's soil there, so erosion happens.
In some spots, it's guardrails just laying there, so.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of accidents there too,
Yes,
so
there have.
it's warranted.
This solves the safety issue, and it doesn't cost us a dime. That's the good news.
So I look for a motion. Ms. Tinderberry?
So, Paul just said it doesn't cost us a dime. Why do we have to approve it?
I don't, maybe
It's a
because it's
contract on the road in our county.
a
and-
local road.
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm just doing,
They're
I know.
responsible for guardrail on local roads and bridges, and they said you had to prove this?
well, it was in our discussions to fix it under.
Well, it doesn't matter. The road commission's responsible for guardrail, maintenance, and,
I get it, but this
bridges
was,
and ditches.
from the discussions originally, this was beyond the maintenance.
so, okay, this
What
is
it-
my question, though. Are we saying, is the motion going to say, we approve the road commission to spend $20,822? Doesn't make sense.
I
well,
just say we approved the
We
contract.
approved the contract as presented, which the township share is zero.
It's not
All
the fix that they
contracts we
think,
approve have a township share.
No, I get
Might be
it.
zero in some cases, and it has been on some we approved just last month.
it's not the fix that is actually needed. What's needed is to drive pile and do it right, but as you all know, we only get $86,000 a year from the road commission for the local road system, so that is a local road, Crab Road, and it was beyond, what the repair was a maintenance. It was needing totally rework, so we could put up all 86,000 of our local share towards it.
No, my point is, it doesn't have anything to do with us. We're not spending any money. How can you approve a contract that requires somebody else to do something? That's my point.
Yeah,
I
and
get it.
I agree with you.
And by law, they're required to fix guardrail. It's their maintenance.
Mr. Steiner?
So Paul, are you saying that the 86,000 were allocated from the county, this 20,000 comes off?
No.
So we're-
No,
No.
it does not.
I'm saying the 86,000 that they allocate towards the local road system, which Crab Road is a local road system, we could have used that totally for that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Francis and I pushed it off a couple of years because we didn't want to utilize that money towards guardrail. And to your point, Ms. Tanneberry, the road commission is responsible for all the roads.
And that's why I was trying to
I
ask
mean,
you
they're
that question.
responsible for all the maintenance, all the roads.
It's maintenance.
Because I could see if they were deducting it from that money that they normally
Yeah.
give toward ours,
Yeah.
I could see, that again to Nancy's point of why we have to approve it.
They asked for a contract, I said, okay. I mean, I was just happy that they were gonna do it under maintenance, So I'll look for a motion to approve the contract.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we approve the contract proposed by the Monroe County Road Commission for Crab Road from US 24 to Stearns Road is the location, and we're talking about the guardrail that's close to Telegraph Road. The total contract amount is $20,882, of which the road commission will fund 100%.
Support.
Okay, motion supported. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montra?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 8F, approval of the Monroe County Road Commission contract for access grade all work on various roads. Again, this is the road commission's responsibility, but we go back to funding. Act 1951, the road commission only gets so much funding for roads. So there's only so much funding for the drainage, there's only so much funding for different projects that they have. And this is one that pops up now and again, just like Lewis and Borg, about a month or so ago, they had to, their houses were getting backed up and it's an emergency and they needed to replace a tile. Well, there's only so much funds that the road commission has for drainage and tile work and ditching, so they need partnerships on some of these. So what they'll do is they'll have an issue where it's an emergency like this and they'll call and say, hey, we'll do the work on it, we'll cover 3,000, we need the township to partner in 1,000, and that's, at that point, that's where this money would come from. Or, you know, Ms. Denver?
This is our responsibility, excess grade all. It improves the homeowners for the flooding when the ditching is taken care of. This is our responsibility. Guardrails aren't. But township, so the township is paying $5,000 on this because it is our responsibility. So I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me to have a contract that you're.
It's not our responsibility.
Yes, it is. Excess grade all, not grade all. Excess grade all is the township's responsibility. I worked there 8 years. Believe me, I know.
Because to my understanding, anything within the road right-of-way and anything to do with the roads is the road commission's responsibility, and all this has to do within the road right-of-way. So alls I know is they don't have all the fundings they need to do all these little projects. It's just like, what was that road when we off Summerfield Road when they needed a Wiseman? They needed to do a bunch of different work in there, and they asked for a $300 partnership to put a pipe under a driveway, you know, just little things like that that pop up. They said a lot of the other communities have a fund in place, and we haven't. So,
I get it.
But-
I mean, but that's why we have SADs, because they don't have the funding.
yeah.
I'm right.
Okay, so I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we approve the proposed contracts with the road commission for excess grade all on various ditching projects throughout the county in the amount of $5,000, of which the township pays 100%. as
Support.
presented.
Throughout the town.
Mr. Supervisor,
Throughout the township.
we need a correction there. You accidentally said county instead of township.
Oops, sorry, excuse me.
I'll support the township, no.
And just, this is just partnerships. We're not covering total cost of projects.
Right.
They cover the majority of the projects. So, okay, motion is supported by who?
TC.
Mr. Clemens, discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 8G, this is for the contract for mowing of the ditches and the road right-of-way, which is the responsibility of the road commission, but again, another partnership here. So I guess there's some verbiage that needs to be changed to where we approve the road commission actually funding Precision and not us.
Right, it's we approve the contract with Precision, but the Monroe County Road Commission wants a contract because they pay them, we don't. So that's all this is the contract between us.
Okay, I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with Monroe County Road Commission for mowing, first cut in spring, center to center of ditch, second cutting summer, back side of the ditch, third cutting fall, both sides of the ditch, in the amount of $23,600.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion, Mr. Francis?
I thought we did that at the last meeting.
We approved the contract with Precision, but the Monroe County Road Commission wants the contract because we pay them, they pay Precision.
understand, but I thought we did it on the road commission's contract form.
No,
You
we
didn't?
did, no,
We had Precision's.
We had
Precision's
the
estimate,
letter from Precision, that was the only thing we had?
yes.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay, could you call the roll?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Number 9, comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes for each individual. Come on up.
Ken Gagne, 8311 Lambert Street. I just want to touch base on that fire millage for the people that are here and the people at home. I'm behind it 100%. If I could move a couple, three of the other millages that are on the tax papers, I'd remove them, give it all to the fire department. Because while I've been here at the meetings throughout the last year or so, I think they're underfunded. They're doing a good job. The people that need them, they're here. Like I told Adam one time, I don't want you in my driveway, but if I need you, I want you there with something that's running. So I'm behind that 100%. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Matthew Anger, 10034 Douglas. I just wanted to announce my candidacy for Township Trustee, and I look forward to serving on the board and this community via the board. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, moving on to comments from township board members. Ms. Tinneberry?
Well, just to comment on Matt, is the chairman of the planning commission, and the short time I've sat on the planning commission, I find Matt to be an excellent leader and a very good quality person to take my place. No, I mean to run for trustee. I also wanted to say that tomorrow I'm going to a capital improvement planning session at Washtenaw Community College. It's called Capital Asset Management. It is put on by the Washtenaw something or other here. I'm trying to find it on my phone. At any length, I expect it to provide quite a bit of information and excellent communication for the capital improvement plan. I think I'm the only one going, but I will be taking that back to the planning commission as well as the capital improvement
Very cool.
planning
Thank you.
committee. Yeah.
That's Washington Community College, right?
Yeah, okay, yes, I think so.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
I can't find it on my phone.
No, it is.
And you called him Bernie.
Actually, it says MSU Education, but I know it's at the Washtenaw Community
Yeah.
College. I called it, yeah.
Very cool. Good deal.
Okay.
Mr. Steiner?
Nothing major tonight, just a quick comment. As we all know, our entire country is going through some challenging times right now. All I ask is one favor, that we all do the right things for ourselves and our friends and family. Just follow the guidelines. Try to be safe as possible. You know, wash your hands as much as possible. Don't put your hands on your face. You know, if you know that you're near somebody that might be traveling or something overseas, maybe stay away. But let's not build into the rhetoric. There's so much rhetoric already in politics today, and then if we try to continue building so much rhetoric, that's when things always get worse. I've compared this to 2008, when everything went sideways in 2008. I said early on, I said, if they keep saying this, it's going to get there, and it's going to get there quicker than it will later, and it did. And I think, I'm not saying that we never would have had a recession in 2008, but I'm saying that I really believe that it never would have been as bad as it was had it not been hyped up and built up so much that it was just going to be this total disaster. And that's when people do panic. Again, be diligent, be safe, and let's let the experts that are working diligently to try to prevent the spread of this disease. Again, take care of yourselves, take care of your family and neighbors as well. Thank you.
Mr. Francis?
Yesterday was the last day that people could pay their winter tax bills here at the township. We're required by state law to return those now to the county as delinquent taxes, and then they collect them. So if you have not paid it and you wish to, you need to contact the county treasurer and make arrangements for that. They work out payment plans. They're very helpful in doing that. So please don't fall delinquent so that you could lose your house. We don't want that to happen to anyone. So if you need to pay your taxes yet, it needs to go to be paid to the Monroe County Treasurer from now on.
Okay. Mr. Clements?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I want to thank the board for the thoughtful discussion on the millage. As we all know, that's a big deal. And I'm really excited because I think the language is going to be the clearest for our neighbors to read and understand, and hopefully they'll be able to cast that in a favorable light. I also want to say congratulations on the guardrail. That was a big deal to get that done. Again, it goes back to health and safety, and I think anytime we can impact our neighbors' lives that way, it's worth noting. And to Mr. Anger, congratulations on running for trustee. You're the first person to come in and announce. I can tell you in my lifetime, of all the roles I've ever had or titles, I think this has probably been one of the most rewarding. If you do it for your neighbors and your intent is to always watch out for them, it's one of the greatest things you can ever do. Not always easy, but it'll be one of the greatest things. So best of luck to you in your race. That's it.
Mr. Montry?
I just want to say I appreciate Dr. Kojo coming here and just his, how much I appreciate his commitment to the Whitman Center. That's all I have.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I have a list. Want to remind the residents that the next board meeting will be March 24th. Due to the election, we have moved our meeting one date, so it'll be the 5th Tuesday. The newsletter has come out. Some of you may already have it. We did a little something different this time. The newsletter looks like it's part of the paper, but you can still remove it. It might save a little cost, and it looks really nice. I saw one today. Election. The election is a week from today. It is Tuesday, March 10th. The polls are open from 7 till 8 p.m. AV ballots are still available. You can come into the township and pick one up with your driver's license. You can still request one by mail, but that has to be done by Friday. The township will be open this Saturday from 8 to 4 if you need absentee ballots. And it is true, if you live in Bedford and your candidate is gone, you can come in. If you've already voted an absentee ballot, spoil that ballot, and we can issue you a new ballot. So you can stop in and do that. If you request it by mail, we will mail you out a ballot, but with the mail, some things get lost. It is better if you can stop in the township and just pick your ballot up, and all you need is your driver's license. And last, I just want to wish my mom a happy 90th birthday.
Couple things. March is reading month, so make sure you go to the library and check out a book. I want to let everybody know, if they'll be using the library, that there will be concrete being torn up starting tomorrow. We've been waiting for a good day to start ripping that up, and thankful to local 886, the cement and mason finishers. They're going to be getting started with that project in 2 weeks. They'll be doing that as a freebie for the township. They always get involved in our community and do a lot of great things with their apprenticeship program. We've got a great partnership with them, and super excited to continue working with them. So really appreciate them. They're always there when we need them. So that area will be probably cautioned off and roped off. So, but that'll save the taxpayers $4,000 roughly. Keep in mind the trade fair is this month, March 21st and 22nd. I think it's changed from last year, right? Last year it was March 10th, right? 'Cause my wife complains it's on her birthday every year. So won't have to be on the birthday. Thank you, TC, for that. A service that we have for our seniors in this community that is really well, but it needs a lot of help, is the Seniors Meals on Wheels program. They're struggling to have drivers, so if anybody's interested, Nancy, you interested in Meals on Wheels? Maybe in your retirement, you can think about that. They need drivers to deliver meals. So, sorry, I had to. Other than that, a lot of positive things going on. I'm excited for the budget year this year. We have a lot of cool things coming this year. Hopefully, a lot of work on this building. Hopefully, we can get controls approved for this building. Controls will be starting this week at the library, and it'll be a 20% savings cost, I think, over a 5-year period or something like that. So excited about that. And then finally, we're getting our lights figured out here. A lot of people come to meetings here, and it's dark in the parking lot. So it was that panel we have is very interesting to work with. So we're finally gotten some people that can work on it and get some of the kinks and bugs worked out of it. So hopefully when you come here on the weekend, it's not dark.
Are they working on the ones inside that don't work also?
Inside, yeah. So we've got that figured out today.
Okay.
And so you should be able to come here, Chief, for your training and have some lights. So other than that, I appreciated the discussion as well with this board, and I really appreciate all the hard work, Chief, you've put in over the past couple of years and to get us to the point where we are. You've got a great team behind you, and, you know, guys like Phil, and, I mean, you guys are really blessed, and we appreciate it. I look forward. I think that's one of my things I'm most proud of on this board, as TC said a few times, is our fire department. It's just gone from, in my opinion, down here to up here with the service and the time of service that we're going to be able to respond to people like TC said. I think you guys are truly saving lives because of the better service we're providing. So kudos to you guys. Other than that, stand adjourned.